A few days ago, I was browsing YouTube's recommendations for something to watch while I'm enjoying my lunch. Somewhere down the list, a speedrun of a game called The Pedestrian popped up. The weird name drew me in instantly, and thank God it did, because this title is one of the best puzzle platformer experiences I've ever had. Gameplay-wise, your core gameplay loop will be going through puzzle after puzzle, with the twist, or novelty if you may, being that all of this is presented in a way such as your average street, construction or shop signs, even traffic lights and so on, came to life around you. Difficulty-wise, the puzzles range all the way from super obvious ones to the very last chapter unexpectedly slapping you in the balls. Looking back at my recording, on your average puzzles I would spend 2 to 5 minutes, and on the rougher ones maybe 10 to 20 minutes. These main puzzles of the game are presented in a manner where you'll have a handful of separate signs, one containing the entry point where you just walked into the picture, another clearly marked as exit for you to proceed, and usually there's also a certain variable you will need to collect and take with you when leaving. Beyond this, the individual signs will all have their own entry and exit points, such as doors or ladders, and their own features, such as obstacles, lasers, pitfalls, or unmountable high walls. Your task is to create a way through this madness by connecting the correct entry points to one another, and once done, making your way through essentially these corridors you created in the maze. Needless to say, as you progress and visit new areas, additional new mechanics will come into play. More about those later in the tips section. Following a super cool design choice, in between the main puzzles of the game, instead of being placed back into a menu to select level 2.3, 4, 5 and so on, you'll keep traveling through the world of signs with your little dude or dudette and solving these mini puzzles or overcoming minor obstacles. This is a genius way of keeping the player immersed in their journey, and, at the same time, it also acts as a means to let them relax for a moment after solving a tougher piece of puzzle. Furthermore, it is during these sections where the Pedestrian delivers some of its highest moments. During your average puzzling experience, the game only presents ambient sound work in the background, occasionally with some really light, soft music. But after you finish the bigger puzzles and find yourself heading back with a key component you gathered, while you're already starting to feel great about what a genius you are for solving the puzzle itself, the game supports this catharsis with higher volume, uplifting music, sweetening your victory even more. Unfortunately, due to the same design choice, there's also no way to go back to previous puzzles, which is a pity. I think it would have been a nice addition to have a way to specifically replay levels of your choice, at the very least after you've completed the game once. While we're already touching on cons, I also have to mention how there's no reset button, which has occasionally left me confused. Now on this topic, there's actually a partial reasoning on the Steam forums. Super props go to the devs for interacting with their player base, by the way, but I think this rather refers to resetting your character, while I would be looking for a full reset that puts everything straight back to their starting position. This way, players could be certain they're not trying to solve a puzzle they already messed up, but the intended thing. This next one isn't really a con, but this is the most convenient time to mention it. I'm just not sure why the game is so strict on how transitions have to be placed between signs. It would be much more convenient if you could just link things up and move between them without having to place the signs themselves correctly as well. Last but not least, expected game time, which is somewhere between 3 to 4 hours. Personally, I was somewhere around 3.5 when I reached the end. Couldn't tell you for sure since by now this has increased to above 8 as I went back to check a few things and also recorded a complete walkthrough, but HRTB also predicts a 4-hour run. Now this might sound shitty, and it is indeed sad. I'd love to have continued the adventure, but keep in mind, the full price of this title is below €17. I already touched on how sound work and music is great, and is handled really well as a tool as well. As for graphics, I think it looks great in its own way. You don't have to possess the visual prowess of an eagle to see how the Pedestrian doesn't operate with the highest resolution or award-winning assets, but if you pay close attention, you can notice a lot of attention to detail. Just as an example, look at how lights, reflections, and their interaction with the different surfaces, especially the scratches on the paint, is handled. Personally, I found this really impressive. During the hours I put into the Pedestrian, not once have I come across any bugs or glitches, no performance issues, no crash, not even a single stutter. The single weird experience I had was while attempting to capture the walkthrough. If I had Windows Explorer or Media Player Classic open before starting to capture the game, recording wouldn't start, but who the hell knows whether that's on the Pedestrian's or Radeon's end. We're now heading deep into spoiler territory, so if you want to keep the game unspoiled, I suggest you skip to the verdict section, which you can find below among the timestamps. Now, for most of the time, there's not really any story going on. You've got a simple character that hops around between different signs and overcomes obstacles. Pretty simple, but the last chapter of the game actually changes this equation heavily, the exact second you step out of the 2D world and enter a 3D one. This entire section heavily suggests that what we've been playing through and seeing up to this point were visions, or more precisely, the playful mind of the real protagonist. I, for one, back in the day, when sitting in the back seat of a car, would imagine a figure that would run along the car as we went. They would run on top of anything that came into my vision, be it rooftops, fences, cars, whatever we just came across. And I think it's mostly the same situation here as well, difference being our protagonist is not sitting in the back of a car, they're probably instead finishing up their shift in a factory or similar environment, then taking the subway, hopping off every now and then to tend to some busy work, maybe looking to do some shopping, grabbing a coffee with a friend. Then they would arrive home, take the alley to the roof to rest, grab a beer, take a look around, and see one of their neighbors having a birthday gathering. I'm not entirely sure how the transition from night to day comes to happen here before you reach the last chapter. Maybe they got wasted on the roof or just flat out fell asleep of exhaustion, but in any case, they then return to their apartment and once again wander back to the world of daydreaming as they magically walk through what was previously a cupboard to a place they saw on a photo last day when their journey began. To me, this is a no-brainer. The gameplay is entertaining, music is great, graphics are nice, and the one single drawback of the game's length is definitely priced into the €17-esque. If you're ever in the mood to pop a puzzle platformer for entertainment purposes, the Pedestrian is 100% the way to go. There's absolutely no need to rush through any of the puzzles, so you might as well just keep staring at the overview picture before you start connecting the signs. Hell, why not even do as I did every now and then, and pretend your cursor was the Pedestrian following your imaginary path. It can help a lot if you sort your different options in groups before assembly. For example, why not pile all the signs with left doors on the right and all with right side doors on the left, so you can see your options more clearly. The way archways work is they grant passage to the sign behind them, keeping your speed and direction while moving through. Use this to reach areas you wouldn't be able to otherwise, just keep in mind it's a one-way pass only. The mechanical arms that prevent you from moving certain signs around have to be powered on to retract. But once you achieve this, you no longer need to supply power for them to stay that way. Spray paint gives the sign you colored a free pass from the game's baseline Reset when connections are broken rules. This is a great tool for you to store collectibles, freeze switches, or even yourself in place while you rewind the connections. I'm not going to spoil the last chapter here, but in case you feel like you're stuck, you're more than welcome to check out the walkthrough we have up on this channel. Just a quality of life note, you don't need to keep holding down the interact button to move boxes around. You can just let go after interaction. And with that, we've reached the end of all our experiences, theories, and the tips we can give on the Pedestrian. We hope you found something worth your time here. If you did, we'd be very grateful if you pleased the machine gods by liking our video. If you'd like to come along for our next deep dive, don't hesitate to subscribe. If you have any game you'd like for us to check out, let us know in the comments section. This year, ticks are running rampant, so take care of your pets and yourself, and we'll see you again soon.